It's been a while since we've done something like this. In the past, we had been doing them at the end of every season, but then I started just making clips on the funniest stuff that would be submitted to me throughout the season, anything that happened on my stream as well. So it felt like it kind of got to the point where we didn't need to review it anymore. It was all there in a playlist. But as the seasons continue to get longer, it makes me think a lot of people probably didn't actually see all these different videos in the playlist and throughout the whole season's months of content. So we will be back to doing a recap of the best ones in the playlist and maybe even some from the disband spreadsheet. If you guys didn't see, this is where this all started. I started by making a spreadsheet with all the keys that were not finished and then putting like a little bit of an assignment to why they didn't finish or upgrade. And that's where we used to do the reviews. Honestly, the stuff that we've gotten submitted and the stuff that we have clipped in the playlist is far, far funnier, but there is some brilliant moments in our actual like normal progression keys as well. Probably the funniest part about this is actually just going back and seeing what I typed, especially stuff from like months ago. This one says the guy died 12 times without killing a boss. And then you look at the actual footage and you're like, oh wow, yeah, 29 deaths and they're still fighting the first boss. This one's another one that I remember too because I put down a comment about why the group disbanded here. It says the guy pulls the plug after the start of the dungeon isn't going well. And then he actually commented, he said, hey bro, I'm status and I didn't get rid of the stone because it started badly. The internet here in Brazil is really shit. There's also really funny stuff from like the beginning of the season where people didn't actually like know how the affixes worked. That guy died to getting like wind bolted twice, but then he says CC, pay attention. So we also let the afflicted go off, but he actually died to the wind bolts not getting interrupted. So I said, pay attention to what? He goes, we missed CC, which I mean, he's right about. We didn't interrupt the wild vortexes of casting, but I wanted to see what he thought about that. So I said, CC of what? And the guy goes, the fucking affix. Are you dumb? It's like, what? No, you don't CC that one. That one gets dispelled. He doesn't like that. He calls me a mongoloid, which I still, all these years, I still do not know what a mongoloid is or how that's meant to be an insult. So even the priest is like, relax, you sound like an ape right now. This one's funny. Back when they first started adding the chain damage to Niltharis, it was like all about trying to figure out how you could make the first pull be like the most efficient in the entire dungeon. So we'd be able to pull all the stuff from the left side too. So we drag that all the way over. Obviously, like I would not be able to do serious threat on that. And there was a lot of people who just didn't fully understand what that would mean. So that guy dies to those mobs. Like look at, you can't really even see, but he was dead all the way on the left side of the dungeon. He pulls threat and then just types the clean 2 dots, like not even the 3 dots. That's how you know it's serious. And then at this point we have like everything over here and there's people just not using the chains. Like 2 people in the group are just not using the chains. This is probably like one of the first times I actually did this. So I'm getting a bit frustrated. I said, use chains. And the guy goes, we did. It's like, no, what? You could see the debuffs. There's 2 players who didn't even touch them. I said the goal is to one-shot every single one of those mobs with all 5 chains, which especially at the time was like a absolutely huge play there. You can pull that off. You never take any damage from it. Then the druid says goal as a tank is to also not lose aggro while I'm dotting. That dude doesn't understand that the chains will straight up one-shot the pack. Like you do not damage them. They don't need to be damaged. The chains killed them. The funny thing, this is like minutes later. He goes, we lusted. Why would I not set up my damage? He's still talking about it. It's like, bro, I don't know why we lusted. That's stupid, but the chains kill him. I think a lot of people at the time just didn't really know about it. There's still people who don't really know about it, but I said that was an error. We did not need to lust. Those mobs literally died of the chains. He doesn't like that, so he leaves the party. Stuff like that, man. The early season was just so wild. It's actually kind of crazy how many funny things happened that I just forgot about. But I think, like, yeah, the true funniest stuff is not really the stuff on the spreadsheet. It's more the stuff in this playlist. So we're going to take a look at all of these today, show you guys the funniest moments of it. And then there's a similar playlist for season 1 as well. Before that, we didn't have all these clips of all this funny stuff organized like this. We've also been asking people to submit the keys. That's where a lot of these funny moments come from. If you're out there running low keys and running into hilarious moments, send them my way, record them, send them my way. I would really recommend everybody record all their footage anyway, because if something goes wrong, you can quickly look back at it to identify what the actual mistake was. And if you can't figure it out on your own, then send it to me and maybe we can help you do that as well. But honestly, one of the best keys is actually the first one of the season. This one is so funny. Like, you really should watch this clip if you haven't seen it. Takeaway here is that the guy who sent me this said, like, this healer sucks. Like, he's awful. He doesn't heal anybody. It's this druid in the group who's currently dead, but if you see on the screen a solar beam, he's not a healer. They invited a guy who's like not actually a healer. He's a balance druid. But I think the funniest part about it is that like they never noticed. They do the entire key. They're flaming killing the guy the whole way. He never like defends himself either, which is really crazy. But yeah, this honestly is one of the best clips on the channel. I don't even want to spoil it for you. Maybe pause this video and go watch that, because that was the first thing we got submitted in the season. I think maybe the start of the season is really prone to this kind of wildness, but man, this was one of the most unique things I'd ever seen. Yeah, then like early in the season, really funny stuff just all happened in 1 week. Like I didn't even realize that mob did a knockback. So I get knocked down here with these slimes who like maybe at first glance aren't that dangerous, but then you realize they drop sanguine. So there's now like a billion sanguine puddles down here. I still don't understand this one either. This happened in that same clip. But we see this like ability. It really looks like some kind of pre-spell to me. It's got like this very holy look to it. People have argued that it's not a pre-spell, but I think it definitely is a pre-spell. From what I could tell, this guy aggroes these mobs. It's hard to tell by the perspective of the footage, but he aggroes these mobs and then he just kind of like goes nuts at me. He's like, bro, that pull, and then like starts like flaming me after the key's over. It's like, I certainly was not the one to pull him. I don't know who actually was, but I'm pretty sure it was that guy who's now flaming me. Here's another really unique moment, like one that you don't see very often. You see this guy is actually casting Astral Recall instead of Resurrect. He goes, I just hearthed instead of res. And this was like on pace to be an upgrade. We actually wiped here and still had 5 minutes to go. This was super early in the season, so like we could have easily upgraded this key, but this guy hearthed instead. That was all one video. And then, you know, we have like the patented all one video moment where we actually had the first week of the new affix of season 2, and we got this 91% disband rate. Never seen something this bad before. Absolutely insane. We have amazing moments like where like this guy stands in a swirl right here, dies, and then like demands a battle res on tyrannical trash. We accidentally get back in combat. That's what happens. Yeah. So I was like, all right, let's just keep going. We pulled a mob by accident there. So the guy goes battle res. I said no, like there's no reason to waste a battle res, especially before Krogma, which is like the hardest boss, especially at the beginning of the season. This guy just like straight up thinks he's more important than the battle res, so he's just gonna leave the group over that. Okay. That's how it started. That was actually the first key of the week that week. This one is probably the most famous one where I aggro the trash. Like I hadn't really gotten a good strategy for getting these in yet, but I knew we wanted to combine them. And this shaman just goes down there and just like basically suicides. Like, I mean, I can't really say anything other than that. There was a lot of comments on this video trying to like defend the shaman's action. We're a few seconds away from having threat. Just wait until the mobs are actually in melee range of the other ones. But the craziest thing about it is he like straight up goes down there and like spends his biggest damage AoE on 2 targets. Like watch this. Uses chain lightning on 2 targets. I don't, just 2 targets being hit by that chain lightning instead of the other 4 mobs that are right here. So pretty clearly an error. I guess people are just really on edge in this game anymore, but he gets like super toxic. Like I had to cut most of it out because he's saying things that probably shouldn't be on YouTube. This is a good video on its own, though. You should definitely watch it. But yeah, it ends with like a hilarious moment where we were actually talking about this in the key and then it happened. I'm still convinced this was a viewer who was listening to the key who did it. But yeah, you can actually aggro the trash there by mind controlling the ad. For some reason, the ad just automatically aggroes the trash, and that's why we wiped. This was the end of the perfect stream. Every single key for 5 hours was a disband. I think it was 12 in a row that day. This is another good one. We got submitted this one. This one really cracks me up. The guy goes, I have underroot. Is it okay to go underroot? The tank is like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? There's like a meme the rest of the season. People keep calling it underroot, like still to this day. Now this one might actually be my favorite video that I made all season. This guy like straight up DCs, but they're like kind of like worked up about the fact that he DC'd. I mean, to me, it's clearly not intentional. Like if you were going to DC on the first pack, like why would you even join the group? So I think they're playing it like they think he's like mad or something like that. This is kind of like the birth of something that I've always loved doing here, where I kind of like counter troll the group. The guy goes, it has to be on purpose, which I just don't see why you would say that. But he was flaming the priest in whispers before, saying they have terrible transmog too. That guy, he takes that really offensively. He like types all caps LMAO. But as I'm doing this, the guy comes back. I didn't think he'd come back. Usually you do this and it's just like, oh, okay, it's kind of funny. But the guy actually comes back and everybody wants to continue. So that guy doesn't know what we were talking about while he was offline. And then down here, we're like wiping to the boss and the guy goes, too many deaths. So I said, just bad transmog too. The priest now, who's still butthurt before, he's like, yeah, the healer has awful transmog, so noob. Maybe if you worry about your own play instead of others' transmog, you'll get better. He goes, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh, this stuff is so hilarious. Now, during the season, we've also got some of like the actual worst keys I've ever been submitted or really ever even seen at all. This is a +2. But yeah, they actually disband a +2. And it's really hard to understand like how a tank who's even like, I mean, I don't know. You don't even need to be geared. Like if you have a character that's max level, I feel like you should be able to solo a +2 boss. But yeah, like the healer is just like not healing anybody or something. I really don't even understand what's going on here. It's like an insanely bad group, but yeah, at the time of looking at this one, I thought this was actually the worst key I had ever seen, and it definitely was at the time, but it actually gets topped later in the season. Oh yeah, then there's this one. We were actually doing this key with a viewer, and this actually happened in season 1 as well. We accidentally invited a non-viable comp. We invited 2 healers to the group. We have a healer who is also a evoker and a healer who is a paladin. Now this was right after augmentation got added. I think this is like the 2nd week of the augmentation patch. So we like legitimately just thought every single evoker who signed up wasn't not, you know, they were an augvoker. You wouldn't think anybody would still be playing healer at that point. But yeah, it's actually a mistake. Like it was not trolling, it was legitimately an error. And you certainly don't see this very often. You definitely don't. And the fact that we had 2 healers and they both died to the boss too, that's kind of funny. This one's pretty unique too. Like I still don't really know what to say about this. There was a lot of like dissension in the comment section of this as well. Like you see the tank is tanking the boss right next to the pillar. The ad is on the warlock who clearly doesn't know where to take it, but the pillar breaks even though it's behind the boss. Now that's a problem that ultimately causes a wipe, but they have so much freaking time here. This is only a 12. Then it actually like turns into this really weird situation here with this evoker. Like we still can't figure this out. The guy goes, "Is this Mythic 0?" And so at this point, a lot of the commenters like probably stopped watching, and they said like, he's saying like, "I can't believe how bad you are at mechanics. You must be doing a Mythic 0." But that does not appear to be the case because people are trying to like clarify what he's saying. And he says it has no key number. And then he leaves the group and tries to hearth in the middle of like the fight being aggroed. And then after the key, the person who submitted this actually like whispered him and he continued to say like, "I didn't know that you invited me to a 0" kind of thing. Which is just like, I don't know how you can be so confused. I like genuinely, I don't understand how you could think that. Why you would think that that was the case after being in the dungeon for 20 some minutes. And then like maybe like worst of all, like why would you leave after? Like what is even going on here? This was a funny one too. Like I still don't know what's going on with this footage. Like somebody submitted this to me. They said there was something wrong with the recording, and yeah, there's something wrong with the recording, that's for sure. But I guess these guys were like really getting on the tank, and it causes like this big flame battle here where they're saying like the tank is playing poorly. We use this video not necessarily as like a humorous thing, but more about like, do you guys think this is appropriate behavior? Like this is a 16, and they're basically saying like, "Hey tank, you're not playing well enough for this key to be successful." Even though like I think like there's a lot of different people making mistakes, you know what I mean? Like you could probably find similar mistakes in both the healer and the DPS. The guy like he's not playing warrior very well, and warrior at the time especially was like looked at as like one of the worst tanks. I don't really like that kind of behavior, especially in a low key. Like I could see if it was like a 26 or something like that, but like yeah, like I get it, he's not playing the class very well. I'm pretty sure you could still upgrade a 16 without maximizing every single spec in the group. And that was before all the problems arose IRL, and then everything after this video is stuff that came, you know, after that, and we start looking for more like new things to find funny humor in, because I'm obviously like very depressed IRL, so trying to find funny stuff in these keys. This one was really unique. They put the wrong key in. We actually had this happen in the previous season. I was doing it on my holy pally as an alt, and somebody put their key in instead of my key. And we talked about this then as well. Like I do not have any sympathy for this key stopping. Like I really don't. Like if you put your key in and it's not your group, like yeah, that's probably the only legitimate disband out there I could say. Like I'm not gonna do your key. I put a group together for my key. But the guy's like confused too. He's like, "Why aren't we doing it?" This was also the first time I had seen this, where like the creeping rot kills somebody because of death grip. And now this happens to me like all the time. I've died to this multiple times to this point in the season. But yeah, he like actually grips the boss, and it like, as it's being gripped, it's casting its spell, and it just like obliterates the group, like kills the entire party. Pop was out of commission for a long time too. Like both of us had some really rough seasons, and he's back now with probably like a great example of why like certain dungeons can be harder on low keys than they can be on higher keys. This kind of mistake right here, like it's unbelievably frustrating for a player, especially I imagine like Cop, who's always overthinking stuff. Like the boss gets aggroed, and then the boss like just jumps up to the closest players, and the tank just like, I guess he just doesn't know that's gonna happen because he's just like standing down here, like looking confused. But yeah, Cop actually dies to that. It starts tilting him. This was the one where the healer dies to the frontal here, and then the paladin doesn't res him as well. That's another funny moment here in this key. Yeah, like, so everybody's just gonna run down with a player dead, including Cop, to be fair. But yeah, the guy doesn't res him, and then they're like running back, and the warrior tank is like, "You guys are so bad." And the paladin who just didn't res him, he agrees. He's like, "Yeah, you guys are all really bad." But they actually somehow managed to upgrade it, and then Cop gets them out. So it's like serendipitous, like such a great ending to this. Even though the paladin like lays on it again and says, "Always the worst ones get them out." But then this key, I think, is actually probably like, if you look at it as a difficulty to skill ratio, the actual worst group I've ever seen in Mythic Plus. Like, you know, the twos, the +2 disbands, these are really, really bad because it's a 2. But this is not a 2. This is a 14. And I mean, yeah, another one that, like, it's not even worth me trying to recap it here. Just go watch this video. Like, every single thing you can do wrong, this fluffy guy gets hit by every single mechanic. Like, I straight up think he probably dies more to the same, like, he dies to the Blade Storm every single time it happens. He goes, "Damn, they just follow me with that." It's like, yeah, that's the mechanic. This is the one where, like, the ending, though, is, like, legendary. Like, the rest of the key is funny. Like, the guy's getting hit by stuff, whatever, that's funny. But the ending here is legendary. Like, the craziest thing you'll ever see. The tank, like, keeps pulling the boss, and everybody just keeps dying because they're not inside the actual boss area. And then, like, the guy, like, starts, like, defending it. Like, he's blaming the other people for it, gets super toxic. This was what made me want to start playing the Evoker like I did this season. This key, because I'm like, if there's people out there like this, I need to find them. Because this guy not only does something super stupid, doesn't seem to know any of the mechanics either as a tank, constantly getting hit by the puddle, the thing flying around. Not only does he not really know what he's doing, but he's super cocky, super arrogant about it, constantly fighting with other people. At one point he goes like, "What on God's green earth was that pedestrian effort?" Like, when you say something like that, you better be damn sure you're not the worst player in the group. And honestly, I think this guy kind of was. And then we started playing the Evoker. And honestly, when I started it, like I said, I was searching for something to try to get my mood right. And I didn't know what I was going to find. I thought I was going to find more things like that guy in the previous key we just talked about. But honestly, I think like this is even funnier. And I never would have expected it. These guys just don't have any idea how to get to this dungeon. This dude is in Silvermoon right now trying to get to Ultimate. The guy goes, "Did you just teleport to Silvermoon?" Oh my god, dude, that cracks me up every time I see it. That had happened where like people just cannot figure out how to get there. I guess it's not that surprising with Ultimate, even though there is a portal. But like, yeah, this is another one where people just like, they're just going to the wrong places. They don't really make any effort to get here. It's just so strange. This happens so much. I had no idea that this is what low keys would be like. Like, we got people who are just not trying to get here. This was also the first time we did the Gulping Goliath boss on a low key, and my god, did it return some hilarious results. I hadn't really even thought about that, but like, yeah, there's some fights that are just like super easy on high keys, and then some fights that do shit like that where people just like straight up don't move out of mechanics and get one shot. Like, this is looked at as like the easiest fight in the dungeon, really, like by a mile. Like, it's not even close, but this was actually the hardest key in the low keys because people just have no idea what they're doing with the frogs and constantly get hit by the boss jumping around. I think my favorite part of it is where the guy goes, "My items have broken." And the other guy goes, "DPS low plus." What is that? What's the plus for? And then the other hunter calls the first hunter a huntard. This another one. Underrot just like owned us. Like, when I was doing the Evoker keys, like absolutely the hardest dungeon for like the lower keys. This is all you really need to see. This guy's like talking about not doing the mechanic, like using abilities to cheese it. Like, look at this. Hunter's off there in the corner. Instead of like breaking the mushrooms, they're in turtle. Here's the one clip. Here's all you need to see. Look at all those mushrooms about to go out. We get 15 stacks. That's 15 mushrooms didn't get broken. We do this like 3 or 4 times. Look at all the mushrooms. There's like 100 of them. It just looks so funny too. Like, you don't really see that very often, especially not in higher keys. Oh yeah, this was also the video where like the ticks were just like getting like triple kills and shit. Like, watch this. Boom, tick just out there breathing on like 3 players. They're not even trying to move. Yeah, Underrot ended up being like probably one of the funniest low keys, man. I don't know what the next season's funniest key is going to be, but it's going to struggle to live up to Underrot. Now, these ones are more recent. Like, if you haven't seen these recently, you missed some crazy stuff. Like, this is the one where the tank actually thinks he needs to be eaten by Neuraxis. I still can't get over this. He is like legitimately saying that like somebody needs to get eaten by Neuraxis. He says it's inevitable. And that like, I mean, that's funny at the time, but it's really not funny. Like, that is really not funny. I feel like Blizzard is like letting this guy down somehow. Like, if you think you can get eaten by that and you're supposed to do it and you're supposed to try to survive it, that's just like on Blizzard at that point, right? Like, the mechanic is supposed to kill you. Oh, this one's so good though, man. Like, yeah, like the underrot, that was wild. And the situation with Uldaman where like people couldn't figure out how to get to the dungeon was amazing. But like this, I think this one's actually my favorite moment of the season right here. We have people just like, I mean, I swear these guys are not like, you would be here for 24 hours and they still wouldn't come to the dungeon. They're not even trying. I still don't know where that Death Knight's going. He's just like flying around Eastern Kingdoms. We thought maybe he was doing like the Halloween stuff or something like that, but people just like join the key, go AFK, and don't make any effort to get here. I don't know, man. This is still like, this kind of stuff is crazy. I never expected to see this happen in any type of key where people just like sign up to a dungeon and then just refuse to enter the dungeon. They will not come here. Like, we sat here for like an hour waiting for groups to actually show up. But then we got submitted the actual worst key of the season. Like, I don't think you could really have a worse key than this. It probably will be the worst key of the expansion, maybe the worst key ever. It's honestly not even really funny because it's that bad. Like, I don't even know what to say. This guy just like randomly aggro's trash. This is a 2, by the way. It's a mythic +2. He aggroes another mob, which is the dragon. I mean, it's one of the more dangerous mobs in here. The tank, no idea that it's aggroed, gets meleeed. The guy goes cauterized. They wipe to it on a 2, man. You pulled one extra mob and they're gonna wipe to it. The guy just instantly leaves. That's what's made it so bad. Like, this is completely unacceptable. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about this, but you know, I think the consensus was that the guy leaves out of shame, which is, you know, at least a little bit less bad than leaving out of malice. But still, I mean, it's a 2. They're gonna triple upgrade this. Like, even wiping here, it's just so silly. This kind of stuff like really bothers me. But then I think like the actual best moment of the clip is at the very end where he starts inspecting players. The person who sent this to me is inspecting the players, and then it gets revealed that the warrior actually has an heirloom weapon on, 183 item level weapon and 194 item level neck. He has the Heart of Azeroth on, dude. Yeah, that's something you don't see very often. Somebody actually wearing gear from 2 expansions ago doing, I mean, you can just literally go buy a green neck. It's like 100 gold. Yeah, there's just so many good moments. I mean, like, really, we could spend all day here going through some of these. There's probably even stuff that I forgot. What I didn't forget, though, is the trend that we started way back in the day. Almost feels like as inexorably connected to this as the failures and the funny moments. So, without further ado, here we are. Conversion, software version 10.1. Looking at life through the eyes of a tire hub. Eating seeds as a pastime activity. The toxicity of our city, Now, what do you own the world? How do you own disorder? Now, somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep. Somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep. Disorder. More wood for the fires, loud neighbors. Flashlight reveries caught in the headlights of a truck. Eating seeds is a pastime activity. The toxicity of our city, Now, what do you own the world? How do you own disorder? Now, somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep. Somewhere between the sacred silence and sleep. Disorder. When I became the sun, I shone life into the man's heart. When I became the sun, I shone life into the man's heart. I feel like that was the appropriate song choice for this season. I feel like the problems have only gotten worse in the games community. I've already made a bunch of videos about it, including a rant like a week and a half ago or whatever. Hopefully Blizzard can finally do something, but one way or the other, season 3 is not likely to have any type of protection against this. It's on us to just be better, treat each other with more respect, and just respect the wishes of the 4 other people you're in the group with a little bit more. Just like acknowledge that they're actually human beings. Until that actually happens, we'll have plenty of funny clips along the way. Starting next week, we're going to be hitting the Blood Death Knight hard. I am considering still throwing in the Evoker here and there for some low keys. I feel like the start of the season would be the absolute funniest moments, but we'll see depending on how much I'm loving the progression. I can't see myself dedicating too much to low keys. If you guys are out there running low keys though, especially at the start of the season, and you can, please record it and send me any of the funny moments. Like we said in this video, the funniest moment, the weirdest thing we saw was at the very, very beginning of the season. So send them to me. We'll have a laugh. Maybe we could also learn, but we'll definitely be laughing. So thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoy. We will see you guys in the next season.